This week, we get to do one of those things that I love, and that is sit around and talk with a bunch of hackers. O'Shea Bowens, he's the founder and chief janitor at Null Security. He'll be up first to talk about living in Blue Team Land and Skicon, a conference founded by O'Shea himself. In the second segment, we welcome John Lucades. He's the VP of Research and Development at Eclipsium. He's here to talk about hacking firmware, the unprotected surface of the enterprise. In the security news, misconfigured Docker registries expose thousands of repositories, which is a gross exaggeration because I only found 940 on Shodan. A forgotten motherboard driver turns out to be perfect for slipping Windows ransomware past AV checks. Jail software is left exposed online, which is actually a really boring story. Adobe patches 42 vulnerabilities across 5 products, and how the CIA secretly owned global encryption provider, built backdoors, and spied on 100 plus foreign governments. All that and more on this episode of Paul's Security Weekly.
This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where exploits run wild, packets aren't the only things getting sniffed, and the cocktails flow steady. It's Paul's Security Weekly. NetSparker, the developers of a comprehensive automated web security platform that includes web vulnerability scanning, assessment, and management. NetSparker's desktop and cloud-based security solutions employ a unique and dead-accurate vulnerability scanning engine that automatically verifies vulnerabilities and provides a proof of concept. For more information, visit them on the web at securityweekly.com/NetSparker. The biggest problem in security that remains unsolved is flat networks inside the cloud and data center that allow threats to move laterally and compromise vulnerable targets. But microsegmentation using traditional firewalls is too complex and time-consuming. There's a better approach: Edgewise Zero Trust Auto Segmentation. Edgewise is impossibly simple microsegmentation. Using the identity of machines and software that are communicating, Edgewise offers the strongest protection that adapts automatically to changes. Protect any application in any cloud without any changes to your network by visiting securityweekly.com/Edgewise.
And welcome to the show. But first, let me introduce you to a man. Yeah, what I said. Yeah, where was I going with this? Oh, like he likes slipping things in backdoors too, Mr. Possidori.
Get it together, Larry.
Welcome to Paul's Security Weekly, where we're very confused on episode number 639, recorded on February 13th, 2020, right here in G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island. To my left is Security Weekly CEO, Mr. Matt Alderman.
Thank you.
Welcome, Matt.
Half of this audience is like, what the hell is he doing back already?
They're like, wait, hold on. He's not supposed to be back for another couple of weeks.
Yeah, man,
I could have had a better time without Alderman on this thing.
I don't know about better, but,
Well,
different.
Maybe. The cadence is on. Mr. Larry Pesci is here with us. Larry, welcome.
Yeah.
You dropped off some arcade machines.
I did.
Cabinets.
I did. You better watch out for Johnny and Mark because they're going to be here until 4 a.m. playing
arcade.
Yep.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
On the lines remotely, Mr. Tyler Robinson is here. Tyler, welcome.
Hola, hola.
Mr. Joff Thayer is here with us. Sorry, I'm moving fast, Tyler.
Yeah, he's moving really fast. Hey, oh, jeez, it must be fuck everything up night. How's everybody doing?
We're doing great. Mr. Jeff Mann's here with us.
Hello.
Mr. Lee Neely's here with us.
Greetings and salutations.
Oh, boy. Just a quick announcement. Join us at InfoSec World 2020, March 30th through April 1st at the Disney Contemporary Resort. Security Weekly listeners are going to save 15% off the InfoSec World main conference or World Pass. If you go to securityweekly.com/ISW 2020, click the register button, and you'll get our discount code applied if you are sponsoring the event or have people from your organization going to the event and you're a security vendor and you want to sponsor a micro interview with us. We're happy to do that. Or a macro interview or a slightly longer interview.
Whatever.
We're open.
Well, we
interviews,
also,
baby. You can come and interview with us. And then I was getting to Container Security Day, hosted by Matt Alderman and myself, where we're going to show you how to secure your containers.
And we're still looking for some speakers to fill a couple of those slots. So if you're interested, contact me or Paul. And
I was telling Matt, I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to have time to learn Kubernetes before the Container Security Day because I haven't gotten there yet.
Where's this?
Orlando.
InfoSec World?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Saturday before is a summit day, and we're going to do a container security summit on that Saturday.
We need a
whole day.
Kubernetes. We've been working on Kubernetes people.
Yeah, but we need a Kubernetes person.
Yep.
Yeah.
Jay Beal.
Good.
That's what I said.
Ooh.
And he can dance. I mean, what better?
Jay MF Beal can dance like
That's
an
right.
MFer.
Jaybreak Town.
O'Shea Bowens is a cybersecurity enthusiast with a decade of experience. He's the founder of Null Hat Security, which focuses in the areas of incident response, threat hunting, SOC operations, and cloud security. He is here with us in studio. O'Shea, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Did I say your name right in the introduction?
Yeah, it's O'Shea.
O'Shea Bowens. Did I say Bowens or Bowens?
It's Bowens.
It's
yeah,
Bowens.
O'Shea or
I felt like I said it wrong.
Mr. Handsome, whatever.
I
I'll
apologize.
take either one.
O'Shea, Mr. Handsome, how did you get your start in information security?
I guess unprofessionally, when I was around 13, 14. Remember that game, Oregon Trail?
No.
Yeah.
Oregon Trail.
Oregon.
Wait,
I
was
say
that a
Oregon. I'm from Texas. We say Oregon.
Sierra Online?
It's Oregon.
Was that a Sierra?
I think so.
Yeah,
Game?
I think so.
I think it was.
But-
I think the dude's wife created it, right?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Hackers, Heroes of the Computer Revolution has an entire chapter on the history of Sierra Online.
Oh.
Since you played that game, you should definitely read it because I
I
believe
will
that
have
was
to
And
read that
at the
now.
time, there was no online, so I think it was just Sierra.
it was just Sierra. But it was something anyway. So you Oregon Trail, yes.
Oh yeah, like around I was in 6th grade at the time, and we had computer classes at the school I went to in Dallas. I'm originally from Dallas, Texas, and we had.
You're not old, really? To have computer classes?
Yeah, we had computer classes.
Wow.
Yeah, we had
sixth grade
It was 6th grade. We had year-round school.
with Oregon Trail.
It was Oregon Trail, and then in reality, we're supposed to be learning like Excel skills and like,
Basic programming.
Well, a part of it was like a part of our art class too. Like I guess you guys don't have that here. Like there's no year-round schools here.
We had
So it's
I had Commodore 64s, and they were like really brand new when I was in 6th grade.
See, we were playing Oregon Trail, and then I started to understand how you can look at code to get unlimited ammo. Because I would always get far, and then I would run out of bullets, and in that game you're screwed if you don't have bullets because you can't hunt and you can't eat. So it took me a while to figure that out. But then I started to get introduced like Base 64 and some like assembly and things like that. And then that kind of happened. And ironically enough, I'm wearing this shirt, but in 6th grade was when Hackers came out. I was walking, me and my buddy were walking to his house after school, and he was like, "Hey, you want to come over and play Star Fox?" And I was like, I think I got to go do something.
Wow, you're a nerd and had nerdy friends. It's awesome.
Yeah, now he's a massage therapist, and he crushes it in Austin. But yeah, I went and saw Hackers for the first time at his house, like 2nd semester, 6th grade, and then I just thought it was the most awesome shit ever. And here we go.
I mean, I think it still is to this day. To be honest,
Most definitely.
I watched it a few weeks ago, and like it holds up just because it's so stylized. I think.
I've been saying there should be a National Hackers Day.
I agree.
I think every day is national.
Just a national, no, for the movie, National Hackers Day.
For the movie.
Everyone watches it.
War games.
Oh my gosh.
And I did go
Here we
back
go.
and watch War Games too.
It's a solid one. I think for my age, at that point in that period of my life, that was what
Hackers was.
that's what captivated everything
Yeah.
and kind of set me down this path.
You wanted rollerblades. You wanted to hack the
I
Gibson.
did rollerblade. I skated and I rollerbladed. I remember. You remember Jinkos? Those massively those big jeans.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to wear those and rollerblade to school.
Oh man.
It was.
That's an interesting piece of your history. Not sure how it
See,
applies to
rollerblades
security.
weren't around when I was.
that's what I thought it
roller
was.
skated. We had roller skating rinks back then.
Okay, but in Hackers, everyone had like those baggy jeans and they're roller skating. So I was like, all right, this is what you got to do. So now this is your lifestyle now.
It's awesome.
For the record, I was 9 years into my NSA career when Hackers came out. Mr. Sixth
Was it-
grader.
Was it 1989? Hackers came out. Take it that
95.
way? 95.
95.
Good year. It was a good year. And now here we are.
But we just skipped. That's how you got your start. Did anything else happen in between there?
Well, I mean,
or-
yeah. So like around that time, remember, like IRC channels were getting fairly big for me. Like around summer 6th grade, going to 7th, 8th grade, started to mess around like on IRC channels. I didn't really have an idea like what a forum was or anything along those lines. But the weird thing that I was always like obsessed with, even still now, like was like how the internet actually works. Like I couldn't understand at that time, like how am I talking or how am I chatting with this dude in Mexico or Germany or whatever. And then I was in one room in this. I remember specifically, I was in this AOL room called Internet. I think it was Internet Bagpipes is what they called it. And it was really a discussion, like the title was How Internet Works or something along those lines. And I started chatting to these dudes there. And I'd say the one thing that's great about being online at that age is like no one knows you're like 13 or 14 years old, how creepy that may sound, but no one actually knows how old you are. So I started asking questions around like, well, how do you transmit, like how does the internet actually work? And he was like, oh, you need to come to this forum. And so I clicked on this other link, took me to this forum, and then they're speaking about like the cables. They're speaking about backbones. They started talking about like DNS at the time. Again, it's like 95, 96. I have no idea what the hell what any of this stuff really means. And they're like, hey, why don't you try this tool and you can actually understand what a packet is. And a packet is basically what makes up your network. So it was all these weird steps of probably creepy dudes inside of chat rooms that you start to communicate.
And you were clicking on links.
I was clicking on links, yeah. But the cool thing was later on, like a couple years later, that's when Sub 7 came out. And then when I got my hands on Sub 7, I just remember like if you're in AOL, everybody clicks on shit there. Like it's so easy to spread it. And like the first time I actually got show was literally placing it was a packed copy of Tetris that I placed inside of an AOL room. But in the AOL room, someone clicked on it, and I got a connection, but I had no idea what to do. It was like, oh, I got shell. And I was like, oh, what do I, like, what do I do now? I remember the coolest thing I could think of was like opening their CD tray was like the
big hack back then.
That was like the epitome. I was like a god in that moment. I was like, ooh, yeah, just eject that. And I mean, you keep going. You're like a teenager. You know, you do more stupid things online. I won't go into, but you do stupid things online that I thank God you never got caught for.
Bob. I was just explaining to someone the concept of Bob.
What's the concept of Bob?
Bob did those things. Well, because you don't want to incriminate yourself. So you create this
fictional character.
A non-fictional character, a fictional non-fictional character. You blame it on someone else. And our person is Bob. We don't know where Bob is. We haven't heard from him in a while, but I'm sure he's
He's pretty much always on the run. Whenever we talk to him, there's dogs barking in the background, black helicopters. And you can tell they're black helicopters over the phone just because of the way they sound.
You can still hear the rotors.
He's somewhere in Russia, maybe North Korea. I don't know.
So did my stage of Bob. Went to school. Actually, I thought I was totally done with like all of security in general, like security and IT. Like I literally thought I was going to do something else. So I went to Texas Tech for fashion design. Weird, but I was thinking in my mind like, what's the best way to like meet a bunch of women? And in fashion design classes, there's like one or two straight guys. A lot of guys are gay. I have no problem with that. It's awesome. It's because they were like they do amazing things too. But it's like 90% attractive women in fashion. And I just always thought like it'd be like super dope to go like to those parties where you're hanging out with models and movie stars. And I was like, well, I can't act.
And you had no interest in fashion.
I did slightly, but I mean the women factor was a big thing.
Because I had to dress nice if I was going to impress the women who were into fashion.
Yeah, hey, it's a formula that never
you
fails.
had a plan though. You were like, I want to meet women. I'm going to somewhere where I can meet women. Where most of us probably went to engineering schools where there were no women.
Yeah, there wasn't no women there. The women in fashion classes were awesome, man. There's a lot of sorority girls, whatever it may be, right? And then like the sophomore year, I ended up working at a friend of mine's brother's startup. He was doing some stuff for DoD, and then he needed help with like managing networks and his servers. Really, his two networks that he had.
And you were like, "Hey, I know fashion." So.
Yeah, I was like, "I can sew some shit for you." And he was like, "Well, why don't you do something with some?" He's like, "Why don't you help me kind of like manage the business essentially from the networking and sysadmin perspective?" And then after that, you know, everything else like from 5 or 6 years prior, I kicked back in. Then started looking for like a security job, you know, which was hard to find in Dallas at that time because I dropped out. I left the school to work at the startup and kept working there, so totally dropped out of school. So at that point, it's like, well, what do you do as like a college dropout?
So many disappointed female students in the fashion program.
Hey, I could have been like
Mr. Handsome,
Oscar De La Renta or something. Who knows? I like they would have like OB on their shirts and all their dresses.
You left it all to come work in security. So what do you do today?
So currently, like as you mentioned, I started a company called Null based out of Boston. The driver for that was really like how do we build out like more like education around like practical like skills. Something I've noticed when I moved back here. Like I left the U.S. in like 2016, 15 timeframe. I went to Sweden for a bit, and when I came back, I had to start like interviewing people and hiring again. I was working for a big pharmaceutical company in Boston, and I forgot how much like interviewing actually like sucks. Because it's hard to vet. This is the problem. I'm being like that serious. It's really hard to vet if someone's like leading you on with their resume or they actually have the skill sets. Mm-hmm. And you have like, we'll say, you know, you have 2 45-minute sessions. So you have 90 minutes over like a 3-week period to make a decision if you want to actually work with this person or if they're competent or not. And one of the things I noticed like throughout my career, like I worked at Department of Energy at one bit, did some stuff for DOD, did some private sector stuff. But one of the things I was doing as I got older was training and mentoring. You know, you always want to give, well, I always wanted to give back, and I think it's the best type of leader is a person that can give back and help someone else climb the ranks. Like, it doesn't make sense for me to hoard, you know, what I know. I think that's kind of a selfish and dick move. But one of the things I noticed when I was doing this in the private sector, especially building around training, was it took a bit longer to ramp up individuals, say around like network forensics or memory forensics or disk forensics, because they didn't have that regimen. Like people in the military, you know, they have it, and that's what they're on, like 4 days out of the week, 5 days out of the week, and it's like their mission. But when you're working with people in the private sector, it's kind of, well, I'm going to go home, maybe I'll show up at work hungover, you know, who knows what's going to happen the next day. And as I began building out these training programs, I was working for this pharmaceutical company, and they were like, this looks great. We want to roll this out across like all of our regions from Asia and Europe. And one night I was sitting at home with my wife, and I kind of said in my head, and like just sat down and did the math. I was like, man, if I were to charge for this, like multiply like what I could do over a couple hours times like 20 or 30 people, let's say I have a turnover every like 3 or 4 months, I could probably make a decent living from this. So like, I'm just gonna start my own thing, screw it. Like that was kind of the idea. And I began building out this cyber range product. But then I made the key discovery that if you're trying to build a product, you need to bring in money because you're poor, because you're not actually bringing in anything. It's awesome that you're building a product, but you need to actually make money, especially to support a family. So started doing more consultancy work around like IR. It almost feels weird to say threat hunting now, because a while back it was really just...
It was a hot term.
Yeah,
It's kind of died off.
It died a little bit, but last year we still had a lot of interest in threat hunting.
Like really more proactive analysis. That's kind of the way I look at it. Proactive analysis and proactive defensive measures. And, you know, doing that from the consultancy side. And then I also work with a startup in Boston called Toast. We sell a point-of-sale terminal company. So protecting people's money, protecting restaurants, and then trying to build out a range to educate.
So wait, Toast provides security for point-of-sale companies?
No. So Toast sells point-of-sale terminals. So
okay,
yeah, so we sell those across across the U.S. So if you're at a restaurant, you need to type in your menu item, or you're ordering food, or we can collect payment. And also we recently bought a payroll company, so now we can process payment too. And the challenge with them was like it was a really cool reason to join them, because at one point I never really thought about Android security. And then when I thought about it from an attack vector perspective, I was like, what are people actually doing from like point of sale terminals? Like who's actually like grabbing those? A lot of the attacks you see for point of sale are like based out of like mostly Brazil, honestly. That's where you see a lot of the stuff. But majority of the time when I thought point of sale, I thought gas station, kind of those card swiping those card swipe jacks that you know they swap out the mold, place a little reader there, they place some Bluetooth reader there, and your card and they're jacking your card and, you know, selling it, you know, offline or whatever. But the more I started,
or even better, just get into the Windows system that's collecting from those magstripe readers
that
don't
too.
have the chip in them. We talked about that a couple weeks ago.
How'd that conversation go? It's creepy, isn't it?
It's creepy.
We had a lot of drinks because PCI usually comes in this conversation with
it was
Jeff
bound
on
to happen. I'm surprised it's been this long.
I know. I thought Jeff was going to do it. I had to preempt it.
He started it. I was just waiting for the appropriate.
Going.
But so wait, hold on. Back up Toast. So I'm a retail establishment. I buy a point of sale solution from Toast.
Restaurant. So we specialize with restaurants.
Just restaurants.
Restaurants. Yeah,
okay,
correct.
It's a restaurant.
Yeah, so restaurant. So restaurants, you can have the handheld or you can have the tablet on the table.
Oh, so they're like one of those new fancy.
It is nice
sales, right? Where it's not like a traditional register. Like I get handed a tablet, and that's where I swipe my card and do the.
No. Ours is way different, way sleeker, way smaller. And, you know, like
a CB and POTS got to be one of their customers.
So it's like
they bring the thing over to you at the end, and
it's based off Android. Yeah, it's based like sometimes smaller, sometimes bigger, like Android tablets that you can leverage for your credit card purchasing, but also for like inventory, for sales analytics, things along those lines. So when I joined them, I wasn't necessarily looking. I sat down with like our CTO and some of the senior members there, and it just seemed like a challenge that I'd never tried to tackle before. Like, one, I never thought about Android security. 2, as like a attack vector, I never really thought about POS. And then 3, it incorporates cloud, because everything we're doing is in cloud. So it was like, man, if I can tackle these 3 on top of what I'm doing, I'm going to be a killer in like a couple of years. So let's go for it.
That's awesome.
And some brilliant people working there. And we're hiring. I got to throw that out there. I promise some people I say that. So Toast is hiring.
Security people? Or
Toast is hiring security people, specifically on my team. So I run the SOC there. So if you're looking, and then like I have openings for like SOC specialists, which is mostly individuals that can help with AWS, mostly intrusion analysis, IR, and a bit of hunting across our devices. Because the cool thing is, if you look at it this way, there's like thousands of devices out there across the U.S. that are in these restaurants. So how can you start to correlate them and then bring together data and look for those hits and those bits inside of all this traffic to determine if someone's trying to do something kind of crazy? And that was kind of the weird, freaky challenge for me. I was like, man, I wonder what I could find with like 25,000 devices, and I have access to like all the logs. Like I could probably find some really cool stuff.
So do you have people on your team that are AWS specialists, or are you yourself a specialist, or you just dabble? Because I just started learning AWS like in depth myself.
The cool thing, so yes and no. So right now it's just me, and there's an application security team ran by a guy named Brendan Dribble. He's a awesome, super smart, brilliant guy. But on the SOC side, it's just me, and I'm building out my team. From the AWS side, the cool thing was when I started to build a cyber range, everything was in AWS. So I had
so you had some experience.
So I had to, and I learned it all on my own. I had to like do these. I got those $400, $500 bills from Amazon because I was standing up instances with ECS and ECR.
It was $200 and change higher than last month. So
yeah,
I didn't do as well as you did. I got to try harder.
Well, you know what you do actually. So if you like, for the cyber range product, we'll be unveiling that like next month. But the thing I didn't know was like when we have API calls that stand up the environment, the lab environment, that stands up the servers and it stands up the victim. The attacking box, the attack box hits the victim, runs a couple of different type of attacks, and it's up to the victim to leverage some open source tools. And then, after there's a certain timeout and everything shuts down. The thing I didn't know at AWS is even though your machines are shut down, they're still charging you for computation, which I did not know that. So one of the bills I got was like $600, but I had like 28 machines in there. Only like 5 were live.
Idle,
yeah, but I was like, dude, what? And I like lost it on AWS. I legit called. I was like, I will pay right now for the upper tier in service so I can talk to a live person so I can yell at them. Like, because that's how upset I was. And in the end,
did they refund you?
No, in the end, no, of course not. I ate $600. So, yeah,
that's why people move to containers because they spin them up and spin them down.
But Amazon makes it very hard to remove things and spin things down.
Yeah, I haven't
especially like through the API and the CLI.
Yeah, I haven't figured out how to actually script so you can actually terminate. Like, I don't know if there's someone out there that has scripts that you can terminate unused sessions or unused instances over X amount of time. I'd love to see that repo because that's where I screw up. Even I forget to do that. Like each time I log out of the environment, I have to remember to physically go in and terminate all these things from testing, and it is crazy annoying.
They definitely make a big distinction between shutdown and terminate.
Yes.
Yes.
And they do not tell you that until you get that bill.
Exactly.
And then they don't tell you, you're just expected to pay it.
Yeah. They're not, yeah.
So what are some of your tools and techniques for security in AWS?
So a lot of it right now, like something, I'm actually going to have, I'm guessing that was Tyler.
that was Tyler.
That was Jeff. I was just looking up who your QSA was. Sorry.
There is no QSA. This is not the QSA you're looking for.
Yes, there is.
So what I begin to find out is even though AWS has, and this isn't like a bash against AWS at all, but they have like hella partners you can leverage. There's not that many tools you can really use from like an IDS and from like a FIM or from an EDR perspective, right? So something I've had to do, which this is what I said I was going to make a blog post, was really how do you actually start to like run traffic mirroring inside of your environment, or like traditionally how you run spam port inside of a DC or inside of a
webcast.
We just did a webcast earlier today on that. Yeah.
Oh, you kidding me? Well, I guess they're going to get a refresh. I don't know. I didn't see that. I was driving up in Boston.
So because Amazon allows VPC mirroring now, so a lot of the NDR solutions or network traffic analysis tools now can tap into that to pull packets and stuff off the wire.
Yes.
Yeah. But having someone else do it on this show gets a broader audience that may not have tuned into your webcast.
Oh, yeah. No.
We don't want to rehash the whole webcast.
I won't go to the whole thing, but
this was specific to an Extra Hops product, right?
Oh, okay.
What I thought was interesting was that inside your own VPC, you have a number of network interfaces for various services like EC2, right? And then you can mirror that traffic from those interfaces to another interface, conceivably, if you haven't bought Extra Hop yet or some other solution, you could spin up an EC2 instance and run open source tools on that. Is that
that's what I was going towards. Because there's not that many tools within AWS that can really help you
natively,
with
yeah.
Well, and Extra Hop like literally just made that announcement like what a few months back.
Yeah.
A few months back.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that.
Yeah.
So a lot of things I've been doing have been running like SO inside of there. There's a guy named Craig. I always forget Craig's last name. This is the project I'm working on right now. I started last night, but he's the guy that made Space Cake. That whole repo. He's over at Elasticsearch.
Yeah.
And he just released like maybe 2 nights ago. They released a new SIM product for Elastic that has a lot of ML, basically leveraging like TensorFlow for detection and for monitoring capabilities. So right now, I'm trying to
say because I saw TensorFlow and I read the description.
Well, because Elastic,
my knowledge of it doesn't
we
go
covered
anywhere.
it on ESW the other day.
Yeah,
that was Elastic
What was
Stack
also
7.6 or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, and it was in the KinkoCon challenge this year too. So I think that was most individuals. A lot of people in security, that was likely their intro.
I haven't delved into this, but now, so you've got an EC2 instance and you're mirroring your VPC traffic to it, and you've got some open source tools like Bro or whatever.
Or Zeek or whatever.
Right? Or Zeek, right? Yeah. Does it understand the AWS specific kind of metadata in that capture? In other words, like, and this was one of my questions for the commercial vendor, right?
Yeah.
Which has funding and they're building a commercial product. But their answer was like basically, VPC traffic gets tagged, so I know what's talking. If it goes to another zone or another security, like all of that metadata is carried forward. I was curious if there were open source, like what you see when you fire up TCP dump or Zeek or whatever.
What you see, so if you, all right, so if you start from kind of the beginning, right, like you have to set your mirror target. So you have your target, your source, and your filter. The target is the box that you're sending all of the traffic to that you're mirroring, right?
They have to be a certain type of
it can't be free tier. Yeah,
they have to be Nitro.
There's no free tier with this.
Right.
I learned the hard way because I went through 2 nights of frustration until their support.
You should have called us. We would have told you.
I didn't know you guys talked about this yesterday.
We talk about all kinds of stuff. Come on.
I didn't see this one. I watched the show.
We talked about it internally. We just did the webcast today, but that was one of the things that we talked about in prep for the webcast, which wasn't public until today.
Oh, okay.
But they said you had to have Nitro.
Yeah, you have to have Nitro. Yeah. And then keep in mind also with some of the splitting off traffic from like a NIC perspective, you need to have 2 network interfaces, so that bumps up the tier you need to be operating from. So what you do is, and one of the things I had to figure out, this is what I do to kind of mirror traffic for specific like lab environments for the range I've been building. So when you have that target network, you set your session, you set your filters for the session, and you supply that with a specific tag ID.
Yep.
And what you're doing is when you collect on that target box, you filter out when you're running T-Shark or whatever, when you're running TCP dump, you're capturing that first 200, 300, 400 packets, and I filter out on the tag ID that I've associated with some instances. That way I eliminate kind of the AWS traffic, because AWS traffic is going to have that public interface, and your public IP is going to have all that traffic.
He did say that it was based on tags, that you can capture and filter based on tags within AWS.
Yeah, so you set those tags within your session filter, and you can leverage that as the output for your TCP dump to exclude anything but those tags.
That's awesome.
That way you can have 7 or 8 different boxes. Maybe one's victim, one's an email server, one's acting as FTP, whatever it may be, and you can specifically grab that traffic and then replay that through SO or through Bro or through Security Onion. So that's kind of the weird things that they just don't tell you. Like this took me about 2 months, 3 months to figure a lot of this stuff out.
You mean even when you read the AWS documentation on it, it still doesn't tell you all the details?
The thousands of pages?
Yeah.
And in the little bitty print, they tell you, by the way, you can't use free tier service with this.
Yes.
In the smallest print, like you cannot read. Yeah. Yeah, great stuff.
So I've had the same experience reading AWS documentation as you have.
It's a lot of it. So yeah, when you mentioned the tool, so that's basically how I've had to like supplement what AWS tools are currently available, at least from detection and monitoring capabilities. I know they unveiled Detective like during reInvent, but I still haven't really touched that. I've heard it's kind of like a beefed up guard duty or beefed up security hub.
I haven't looked into that
yeah,
one.
could be.
I know.
But
they
are
did
you pulling like CloudWatch and CloudTrail logs and that stuff as well? Or
what you can do, this depends on how like for the range, I have to build out labs, right? And I like to keep some of the data because I like to see how people are actually learning and how fast they're solving challenges. So I pump a lot of the data to like an S3 bucket, and then I turn around and I repurpose that at a given time. So like when I run.
And you make all your S3 buckets public, right?
Yeah,
because that seems to be the industry standard.
Making secrets is the way to go. Have you not heard? That's the word on the street. But I pump a lot of stuff to the S3 bucket that I can re-grab and replay
and anyone
at another
can get
time.
it too. I mean, they're just open.
Yeah, who makes that? Rhino has a really good product for like scanning for like your best practices essentially with AWS, but specifically for like S3 buckets, looking for misnomers around leaky data. One, secrets being spilled, but also accepting open connections, and then IAM policies and stuff like that. AWS is a crazy weird thing for security. Like I did not.
Isn't it though?
But it's so essential. Like
it is.
You're not like. I was at a conference.
It's
a few weeks
not
ago
a traditional security problem. It's what I think is really not well understood in cloud service providers is how important the configuration is, because configuration is what kills you. But we don't think a lot of times about the configuration side in security. We go after the vulnerability, we go after the threat hunt or this or that and the other thing, and it's like no, like in the cloud, it's like basic configuration management. If you don't have the stuff configured right, just think of all the holes that are open in that environment.
But configuring it just to get it to work is a challenge. Largely because of like the documentation just isn't clear. Like, God forbid you want to do what I did, right, and stand up all your individual components first, rather than like you can go to ECS, for example, and click the Get Started thing, and it walks you through the wizard, right, and it creates your VPC, creates your security groups, automatically assigns the roles, and I'm like, I'm not going to learn anything doing it that way, so I want to create everything beforehand, then spin up my services and have it use what I built, and then nothing worked. And like to get down to which role should carry which policy and where you add the default route and which security group carries your firewall policies were all independent challenges that I had to go digging for. So if it's that much configuration to get it to work, my fear is how much work is it to make sure my configuration is secure and monitor that on a regular basis.
I'm going to hear the strange irony of like pretty much like troubleshooting AWS issues is that majority of the things I found in regards to like walkthroughs for troubleshooting have been on DigitalOcean's site.
Yes.
So it's hard.
So I'm like, what is they're usually way outdated too.
Yeah, but they're still factually accurate though.
Right.
So that's what's so weird. I'm like,
well, that's actually accurate for what was available in AWS. Sometimes you can translate that. And I'm like, wait, I don't have that option. Hold on. Oh, that blog post is only a year old. What the hell? It's because Amazon's constantly evolving.
Changes.
And it gets creepy when you start going in like ECR and actually you're leveraging other like automated tools for actually deploying your packages. And then how do you ensure like your package dependency isn't vulnerable, right? So how do you scan across that?
He knows that.
How do you create rules for ECR? Did you go into the rule thing? Is it the most messed up interface ever?
It's confusing in a sense, yeah.
And there's like a checkbox for like just make everything public. And I can see people going, shit, I don't know, just make everything public for
hey, it works.
now.
Whoa.
Right? Well, also they have that default to your whatever the default to VPC, like a norm, like your first or second created VPC that's in your account.
Right.
And a lot of times I've seen that checked before. So it's like if you forget about that, and let's say that it happens to be open to public, there goes a container that you just stood up that someone who is likely scanning across the East region, because everyone tests their crap with East region. I don't know why that is.
But then you've got all the other permissions. It depends on what permissions you could give delete and commit permissions to your registry, which means someone could go pull down your image and then delete it or upload new ones or change the policy. Or there's like at least a dozen different, I don't know, are they roles in those policies for ECR?
It's roles.
Roles, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's how you get ants.
And this is how we get ants. Yes.
There was also some big Docker vulnerability that came out a couple of weeks back, and that was allowing individuals to gain access, basically like RCE into individuals' Docker images, and then swap out the primary like dependent or your dependency. So that was like super creepy too. So imagine if you're leveraging that as like your pipeline for what you're building in AWS. Like it's all these.
But
weird
we have a
areas.
story, like even just pulling people's images from the repository. If you were to look at those images, you'd probably find some passwords in there,
Probably.
right?
Yeah, I think so.
Probably.
In most
I'm not saying
people's-
do it.
In most people's images, you would
I would think so.
potentially.
Paul finally figured out how to get them out of the build.
I got
See,
him on
he's
the
learning,
build.
right?
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
he
I
got
got
him
him on the
out.
build, but like if you don't have a secrets manager, or you're not using AWS Systems Manager
Correct.
with what is it called? A protected node. What did I call it? I did it last week. It's a protected secret within Systems Manager, or you can use AWS Secrets Manager.
And you can also write a policy that requires that secret manager is present inside of the build before you can
Right
actually
before
go
you,
live with it. Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's awesome. But like I've got hacks. Like I'm like, okay, so what if you haven't configured that? I can keep it out of my build, but eventually it lives as an environment variable in the image when it runs. Because like I mean,
Yeah.
it has to live
somewhere.
somewhere.
Right?
What I experimented with, it was a terrible failure because in Python you can't reach out into the operating system and wipe out an environment variable. Because I'm like, oh, if my app starts up, I need to read that into my Python app. Why can't I just go in and then delete it from my local environment? I mean, it's still in memory, so I guess it really doesn't.
Yeah.
It really
I
doesn't
see
help.
what you're
Secrets
saying.
Manager is really
Okay.
the way you can only get so far protecting your credentials without a secrets manager.
On your own.
On your
Yeah.
own,
I
yeah.
think I could be crazy, but I think it's purposely designed that way.
I agree. I agree. I can keep them out of the build pretty well now.
Yeah,
but that's,
it's fun
that's the
stuff.
extent of it. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
it
fun
is.
stuff.
It is fun. I agree.
That doesn't sound like fun to me. That whole
but
the whole scenario you guys just went through was like, wow,
It's because
that's many moving parts.
we're
That's
hacking
the new
system,
wave,
right?
baby.
Yeah, we're hacking the system.
This
right?
is essentially the future. So
I was just gonna say Kubernetes is the future.
Actually, I did get my build process. It only works if you're destroying your data every time and like spinning up a new environment.
and
But-
terminating.
And so when I terminate, if you remove the volume, it all works. But my build script, I dynamically generate all of my secrets, my passwords for the database and such, just like OpenSSL, random, like whatever. And then I write those to the environment file. Then I use Docker Compose to build my environment. So if I destroy my build every time, like when I'm in development, I can get different passwords for each set of the build
pretty
and
cool.
set them each time. Because I'm like, well, if these are going to be hanging out there, I know people can read them if they break into my images or get access to a running container. I'm like, I just want the ability to change them really fast. And that's
That's a
my
smart move.
like line of defense, which is not great, but still. that was
It's
pretty neat.
something.
It's
Because we're
something.
too cheap to go with a secrets manager.
Well, I just also wanted to push it as far as I could without a secrets manager too, right? But
Then-
I think if you had a HashiCorp Vault as one of your standard containers, this
You'd be
problem
okay.
goes away.
Yeah,
I think
you'd be all right.
Yeah.
So
So
I think we bored everybody else, but you and I had a great
were
conversation.
just-
that
that
was
was
great.
fun.
talking shop.
this is what I deal with them day to day. So
Yeah, exactly. You want?
What are you
talk
guys
Skicon?
talking about? I had no idea.
Yeah,
something in cloud.
Cloud.
PCI,
cloud.
cloud, machine learning, PCI.
Blah, blah, cloud. Blah,
ML,
blah,
ML.
ML, AI, EIEIO. Yeah.
So you created Skicon.
Perl.
Yeah, yeah.
Tell us about that.
I should because
You created your own
we
conference.
need to sell some more tickets.
Yeah, right. Come on, let's promote it.
Yeah, so I started a conference called Skicon, Skicon New England. I made a drastic mistake it was actually kind of funny, but I'm not from here, right? So I moved here like 3 years ago. My wife's from here. We met in Manhattan. We were in Sweden, and we came here. But the idea was like, okay, I love snowboarding, right? And there's a Boston security meetup every third Thursday of the month in Boston. So that's become like basically my family when I moved here, because I literally didn't know anyone besides like my wife and her family, and I just happened to move here, and it's awesome, guys and girls included with BSM and the DEF CON meetup in Boston. So those are the people I like latched onto and became good friends with, and a couple of us would go snowboarding from every once in a while. We all go together, and I just remember thinking like it'd be so dope if there was like a conference we could snowboard, like hang out during the day, and then like have the talks at night. So this way you're not doing like the atypical okay, let's network over coffee after you've been sitting down for 45 minutes straight or an hour straight, And yeah, so I figured, screw it, I'll start it up, So I found 2 other guys, Chuck and Jeremiah, to help me out with this, and that kicks off next Friday and Saturday, and got some pretty solid talks. But the idea was really, how do we get together and like have people like on different mountains? I wanted to do this thing called like ski driving, like set up a bunch of different Bluetooths that are beaconing out, so like war driving, but like have it like on a mountain. But we couldn't really figure out how to actually make that work with enough distance. So you need like antennas, and I don't think most of the parks are like Loon Mountain is going to be okay with us placing Bluetooth and antennas inside
I can
of there.
just see like the tower for the ski lift. There's this electronic device strapped to it with an antenna. Like that wouldn't attract any attention.
Put an antenna on your helmet.
Yeah,
Well, you're moving too fast. So like I looked into this. So like, yeah, I went kind of balls crazy with this. But so there is no ski driving. I'll put it that way. But the idea is to have people, come Friday night. We'll have fireside chats next Friday at Woodstock Brewery, and then it's actually at a brewery. So even if you don't ski or snowboard, there's something for you to do.
you can sit around and drink beer.
You should have called it Apres Skicon.
That is what's on the shirt.
Okay,
it's Apres ski and hacking. That's what's
There you
on
go.
the,
Yeah.
That's if the shirts arrive in time. We were just talking about this whole mess that's going
There's
on.
no shirts and no badges, but there'll still be a conference.
There might be badges. So the badges we ordered they were sourced from China, and due to this coronavirus outbreak, the factory that we're ordering from had to like quarantine a bunch of their workers. So there's a chance that the badges may arrive well after the con. So I'm hoping that's not the case. But if anyone's around, the 21st and 22nd of this month, yeah, definitely come check us out. You can go to the website, skicon.ne.org. The thing I was saying earlier, I thought there was only like 5 states that made up of New England. So I had this like awesome idea for like a logo to have like the 5 families of cyber, like kind of like Godfather style. And I left out Vermont. And apparently, I got like all this. I didn't know that, but I swear, if you went to Wikipedia, at least the day I did, I didn't see Vermont on there. So I got all this shit on Twitter about like, why is Vermont not included in New England? I was like, I don't know. Ask Wikipedia. Like, plus 5 families sounds way cooler than 6 families. So like, the idea was to have that as like the logo for like 5 families of cyber come together like brothers and sisters.
I can see the map now: Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island. No Vermont.
You could have said because doesn't that belong to Canada?
Damn, see, that was smart. I should have said
Oh, yeah. There you go.
After the fact.
I know, right now, it all comes together.
Look at you, barely a citizen, giving away our states to Canada.
He wants them for the Aussies. Come on.
Right?
So that's the
gone with that.
the idea,
Isn't it? In the Canadians, anyway. go
No,
ahead.
we like.
Wait, what was that?
We like Vermont. We're not giving it away.
No, I didn't
it's
know that.
definitely part of New England.
And keep in mind, I'm not from here, so of course I removed that part of the logo. So now it's Ski Apres and hacking, and then we got some pretty solid speakers. They're all like hand selected.
On
so
those T-shirts that won't make it to the.
they might.
They might. That's local. That's a local issue. That's not a China thing.
The T-shirts are being made in Lynn, so it's up to. I won't name the shop, but it's up to this specific shop in Lynn, Massachusetts, to finish the shirts.
And they better get them, otherwise
the
we will
beautiful-
name them.
The beautiful
right.
part about a Skicon is you could host this in a lot of different places if you wanted to, right? You can
can
create
go
a
to Colorado
whole lot. Yeah, you
for
can go
Mass
Colorado, you can go Utah, you can go. Yeah,
We had a small meeting with the organizers, with Chuck and Jeremiah, and like we were just kind of talking, and then I revealed like my evil grand plan. It was like, it's not just here, boys. Like after this year, we go to international. Like we go to Denver, we go to Utah,
We're
take
going
it
to
Japan.
the Swiss Alps.
Going to the Swiss Alps. So like that's like kind of the plan forward. And also like I think you're more open to like communicate with people when you're doing physical activities. As much as and corny as it sounds, when you have those corporate events where it's like dodgeball or
Trust
like
falls.
bowling, yeah,
Whirly ball.
trust
Yeah.
falls. But you do feel like a higher sense of like trust with that individual when you're doing physical work together. It's kind of one of those things like when you're sweating next to someone, you kind of open up a bit more, not pores wise, but you open up a bit more than you normally would. And I think it'd just be so dope to have people like skiing and boarding together. And it's like, hey, what are you doing?
But you completely flip the model, right? During the day, you would sit and listen to talks. In the evenings, you do your networking events. You kind of flopped it. You said, look, during the day, we're going to ski. At night, we're going to hang out and have talks. It's a very different concept.
At a brewery.
I like that. Yeah. That's awesome.
So that is the plan. If you don't have anything going on, I think the mistake we made with planning, or I take the full brunt of the responsibility, was the Monday is RSA. So I did not plan for.
Yeah, but that's okay though. Not everyone goes to RSA.
Yeah,
a lot of people are
some
going,
people,
apparently.
yeah, but you fly
Different
out on
style.
Sunday. You get there Sunday. You kind of acclimate, and things go
It's
crazy.
okay because everybody from Vermont's going RSA.
I did not say that, man.
So you said
I
you
heard
had some
Vermont's closed to
you
go
had
to
some
RSA.
cool talks. Sorry, Lee.
I said I heard Vermont's closed. They're going to RSA.
They're moving to Canada. That's what I heard.
Ooh.
Oh, that's just
They're
it.
going overseas.
O'Shea is not feeling the love here at this point.
I was like, I'm the one that get roasted on Twitter for this, so it's okay.
So you said you had cool talks.
Yeah, I'm excited. Well, I'm guessing you're pulling it up because it looks like you're typing on your machine.
He's
right now.
trying, but he keeps getting certificate errors, so
I
just
am.
ignore him.
Did you see that?
Yeah, so the talks are kind of variant. Like there's like my buddy Nico Smith, he has a talk, and that's really how do you secure which is something I have a 2-year-old daughter, and something I haven't really totally thought about is how do you like secure your devices for like your children, right? He's Army captain, does like red teaming for the Army, so he's giving this talk on like how to build out MDM solutions inside your home, so you can ensure like, hey, at 6 o'clock or 7 p.m., whatever time is cutoff time, you limit, you totally destroy the internet on their devices.
You know,
need to-
in the commercial software out there for that really sucks, and I've tested a few different solutions.
And firewall
Sucks.
rules don't work because your 16-year-old daughter figures out how to hack into your Wi-Fi and disable all those settings.
Yeah, that's just a quick YouTube video.
Yeah.
It's surprising how like a lot of the thing that bothers me about MDM majority of the time is the configs are super hard to get down, but also the walk around of understanding like, well, what if I peer my traffic from this or I bounce off of this proxy? What happens then? Because a lot of the times they're waiting. The only way that it's really applicable is if that agent is running on your box, right? So if you find a way to like, I did this at an environment before this was when I was living in New York at the time, and what we basically did was set up a couple of machines inside of AWS and use those as proxies. We stood up OpenVPN, use those as proxies. So anytime we had to go outside of our environment for research purposes, we walked around the MDM solution that was in place. I mean, and it was trivial like at times. So it's I get it when you have massive corporate environments and you have formulas that you have to protect, or massive bank, like multi-million-dollar accounts you need to protect, things like that. But for home, that's not really usable, right? Like, so what do you do at home? And that's what like Nico is going to come talk about that.
Well, and it's interesting too. I mean, as much as you want to protect your children from the internet, there's also protecting the internet from your children as they get older and have that carry that hacker gene forward, right?
Yeah, true. I'm worried about what my daughter might do because
Right?
she has me as like an influence. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there's another guy that's coming. He's doing a talk on. I won't go too deep into his stuff because it borderline freaked me out. I was on the fence about accepting it, but basically, I guess he did a lot of work in China. So maintaining OPSEC in China and then making it out alive is essentially what he's going to go into. So I'm like fairly pumped to hear what craziness that comes out of this.
Face masks, lots of face masks.
Lots of face masks.
Write it now.
Their facial recognition is no joke. Like that is, it's like impressive. Like, to be honest, that's crazy to be able to narrow down a person and determine which direction they're actually walking towards, because you can track their movements from internet activity and their phones. So like I like the Impossible Whopper. So like if there's a Burger King, yeah, I like the Impossible Whopper, whatever. But if there's a Burger King in an area, like it's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, there's a good chance I'm probably walking towards that Burger King. And if you can pull up enough data to know like within this geolocation, there's a Burger King within half a click or 500, 600 meters, and O'Shea's walking north, there's a strong chance he's going there. And we see his face every other block, or not even every block, however, whatever the distance is where they have cameras set up in China. I'd love to see that report. Like how far can you walk without running into a camera, like in Shanghai or something like that,
Yeah,
right?
well, I mean, they'll tell you, but they'll only like give you a quarter of the number of cameras.
Okay. You can actually request that? I was like,
mean,
wait, that'd
you can ask
be really
anything you
nice of
want.
the Chinese government.
I mean, you can ask anything you want. You might
Just
not
don't
like
believe the answer.
True.
Don't believe.
You either may not get or you might not believe the answer.
But I just think that's like ridiculously impressive, and it's coming here too. So I think we're all fairly aware like what the next wave will be for digital privacy, or in the intrusion upon like digital privacy.
Yeah, I was going
And
to say
think-
the lack of digital privacy.
I say the intrusion in digital privacy, and that's going to be actually tracking individuals moving up and down the street, walking up and down the street, and then correlating that with your internet search activity or your mobile search activity on your phone. Like, it sounds creepy, and I hope I'm wrong, but something tells me I'm probably not wrong about this.
No, that's already here, man. That's a thing.
Speaking of being right or wrong, I have 5 questions for you, and there are no right or wrong answers.
That usually means it's the wrong answer.
Nope.
No, there are no right or wrong answers, and we don't judge you.
And one's multiple
Great.
choice,
Yeah.
so it's okay.
We only judge you after their mics are off. Right?
It's like after you're out the room.
After you leave and not on the air. No, we don't. We really don't judge you. But are you ready to play 5 questions with Security Weekly? Because ready or not, we're going to play 5 questions.
Is this one of the questions actually?
It is
Ready or
not.
not,
It is
here
not.
they
So I
come.
guess I
Yes.
have 6 questions.
All right, let's go.
O'Shea, 3 words to describe yourself.
Curious, caring, and paranoid.
If you were a serial killer, what would be your weapon of choice?
Probably poison.
In the popular game of Ask Grabby Grabby, do you prefer to go first or second?
What? What game
I'll
is
repeat
this?
the question. In the popular game of Ask Grabby Grabby, do you prefer to go first or second?
What exactly is Ask Grabby
It's
Grabby?
popular in Europe.
We would have figured, being from Switzerland or spending
No,
time
I was in Sweden.
Sweden.
I definitely didn't play Ask Grab. Is this?
You want to go first or second?
It's more popular in Switzerland, apparently.
You didn't have the same Swedish experience I did then.
I don't know where you were hanging out. I think second.
Cool.
Choose 2 celebrities to be your parents.
Alive, dead, fictional,
Live
or
dead,
otherwise.
fictional or otherwise.
Oh, this is a weird combination. I would say
It was 2020, man.
We don't
they killed
judge.
whoever you did. We do not judge.
cool. So John Michael Baptiste, that'd be dad, and then like Courtney Love is like a mom, because that'd be like a crazy childhood to have like this awesome artist. That your dad kind of like cool guy from Lower East Side, and then Courtney Love's like a maniac, but also seems like a lot of fun to hang out
Oh, wait,
with.
not the guy in
I-
Kickboxer? That's different. Oh.
That's like the best answer I've heard. That is the best answer I've heard ever. I mean, that
is
That was
Yeah.
cool.
is
I mean, when he
out-
does that split in Kickboxer, it's impressive.
Oh, you're talking about
Jean-Claude
Van Damme.
Jean-Claude
I was like,
Van Damme.
Jean-Claude Van Damme.
no, Michelle
Wrong guy.
Baptiste, like the famous artist. Yeah, he's,
Oh.
yeah. What did his last? He died from like a heroin overdose, unfortunately. But I think his last painting sold for
So
like
you're going to give
20.
Courtney another husband that dies of a... Never mind.
That was that was apparently a shotgun blast.
Oh, no, it was. You're right.
Apparently he
You're right.
leaned over and pulled the trigger on himself, but whatever.
Whoops.
Anyway.
Oopsie.
Wow.
Oops.
Well, O'Shea, thank you so much. And you're going to stick around.
Yeah, definitely
yes.
stick around.
And hopefully all of our listeners do too. Stay tuned for our interview coming up next with John from Eclipsium. Stay tuned.